This podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Anything discussed during this podcast does not, and is not intended to, constitute legal advice. Instead, all content is for general entertainment purposes only. Listeners should contact their attorney to obtain advice with respect to any particular legal matter. Listening to, contacting us, or any of the links or resources contained within this podcast and/or website does not create an attorney-client relationship. The views expressed during this podcast are those of the individual lawyers in their individual personal capacities only.
All the legal ladies, all the legal ladies, all the legal ladies, all the legal ladies.
Welcome to All the Legal Ladies. Unwind with us as we navigate the fascinating world of legal tales, precedents, and the occasional objection-worthy joke.
Which we told before this.
Making plenty of objection-worthy jokes today.
I'm Kat, Marsha, and Alycia. So, objection-worthy jokes. Any that you want to tell?
No, thank you.
None on the air today.
Okay.
They won't even make the blooper reel.
No. They'll just make people uncomfortable.
Here,
They've already done that.
I could do one that my daughter taught me yesterday.
Okay.
You ready?
Mm-hmm.
Alycia, did you know that you can make an owl sound?
I can?
Do you know who else can?
No.
Ruined it for me.
Who? Am I supposed to say who? I don't know. Kid jokes often don't make sense. I'm like, is that the joke? That sounds like my kid's jokes.
Who? Do you know who else can make that sound? No. Who? Just you. Okay.
Owl sound. I thought you said owl sound.
Ow.
Owl. That makes more sense.
My mind thought she said owl sound and it went someplace else. So
And we're not going there.
we're not going there. I read too many romance novels. Okay.
I feel like this intro needs to restart.
I feel like those should neither have ow sounds nor owl sounds. Either
I
is
think
strange.
this is a good intro. So let's go.
There's
It's
werewolves
PG.
and vampires and what's an owl?
Apparently spiders.
Well, aliens with tentacles, I guess, right? I don't know.
So how is everyone doing today? We're in a silly mood today.
I think
Yeah, a little bit spicy, a little bit apparently too old to make these jokes.
Yes, we have been told that it's like mother and father talking about sex. But speaking of sex,
Speaking of,
that's my segue.
okay.
We're going to talk about diversity within the legal profession.
That is next on the docket. Yes. So let's talk about diversity.
Yes.
Let's talk about you and me.
Okay, I was also hearing that in my head, but I was not going to say no.
Just be careful. 6 seconds. Fair use. That's all I got.
Exactly.
So 79% of lawyers in the U.S. are white. Are we surprised?
No.
No.
Only 39% are women.
Not surprised.
Not surprising. And 9% of female attorneys in law firms are women of color.
Not surprising.
Nope. And only 21% of lawyers in the U.S. are people of color altogether.
Not surprising.
Let's see. They go on, we have some other percentages, like 6% identify as LGBTQ plus. Partners are less than 2.5 for LGBTQ plus. 1.4% of lawyers have a disability, at least that they've reported. I will say I've only seen a couple attorneys in court here in Southern Maryland that physically show a disability. They use adaptive technology to get to court. But what do you think?
I'm in that. They guesstimate 2.5% of women attorneys who are Black. So I'm in that 2.5%, and it's not surprising for various reasons. You know, one, the cost of legal education can put a damper on people wanting to pursue a law school education. Two, the lack of mentors in the community because we're so underrepresented in the legal profession. And then you have to start looking at how the legal profession evolved. It started off as just white males. Then they allowed women, and then women of color or people of color. So, and that wasn't until recently. My husband showed me a TikTok, or not a TikTok, but a reel, whatever, something on social media of this Black attorney talking in one of the Carolina states where once you graduated from law school in one of the Carolina states, you were automatically eligible to practice law until Black people started attending law school and were graduating. Then you had to take the bar exam.
Oh, lovely.
So all of those are obstacles to diversity in the legal profession. And of course, you know, there, like I said, are others. And you see it, unfortunately. When I first came here, I didn't know of any other person of color who was practicing here in St. Mary's County.
Mm-hmm.
So that was unfortunate. And of course, because we're so low on the scale, then that leads to lack of diversity on the bench, lack of diversity in law firms, especially for partners. And so though we're making strides, we still have a long way to go.
Mm-hmm. And so you look at those, like it's pipelines, it's connections, it's who you know. So if you don't know anyone who's had those jobs, you know, if no one in your family has, or your friends or your friends' parents, then how do you get those opportunities?
Right. Right. But I was fortunate enough to go to Howard Law School, which was, you know, predominantly Black people of color. So we got the sense that we can do it. We had that mentorships from the professors. You know, we have that history. So we viewed it as like we're breaking barriers. We know we're going into this legal profession and there are barriers in place, but we can do it because of look who came before us. Thurgood Marshall graduated from Howard University School of Law. And it's so interesting when you go on the campus, the law school campus, you see all the different classes back. They go back to the late 1800s or early 1900s of who graduates. So you see all these people, these successful attorneys, and they're all willing to come back. So that is what you need in the legal profession, and not just starting at the law school part of it. We need people to go back into their communities, people of color, women, LGBTQ. We need people who are diverse to go back and say, yes, you can be a law school, you can go to law school, you can be an attorney, so that people can see role models. Because like we said in a previous episode or an episode that's to come, representation matters. And when you see someone who looks like you doing something that you might want to do, that gives you an incentive that tells you that you can do it.
And I think there are so many ways that we can help provide that without, Supreme Court knock down affirmative action and things of that nature. But there are ways to make things just more accessible. I mean, a lot of graduate studies, especially law school and med school, funds the lower grades, funds the just plain bachelor's, and helps prop up some of the schools. And when you put that premium on what it costs to get a degree, then a lot of people can't reach that. It's inaccessible. And I think also not putting such high a stamp on people who graduate from Harvard or Yale. I went to the University of Baltimore School of Law. Perfectly fine school. It was Maryland. I'm just as good of an attorney as anybody else in my practice, if not better from some. I'll toot my little horn. But Baltimore was quite different in the fact that it's geared to people who are working. So a lot of night school opportunities and also second career. So we had a lot of older students that made up our demographic. University of Baltimore skews to 35 years old for the average student age, which I think provides a different perspective. And that's not something that's accessible in every other state or locale. And I think the pandemic also showed us that a lot of classes can be online. I know the University of Maryland has now come to the Higher Ed Center down here in Southern Maryland. The closest law school is 2 hours away from where we live.
Right.
So if you can't afford to live on campus, that's a long commute. So if we can do these
localized higher ed centers or online studies, it would, I think, open it up to a lot more accessibility.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because who can really afford to get into that much debt?
Yes.
Especially if you're maybe working to put yourself through school to begin with. You know.
And I think truth in advertising. Like, where are you actually going to work?
And how much money will you make when you work there?
Yes.
Do you need a $50,000 a year law degree if you're going to come out and work at a nonprofit that pays you $40,000 a year? Not that I have any experience with either of those two things.
Same here. Yeah. I wish law school or even high school, because people start thinking about careers in high school. And they say, yes, you're a lawyer. Automatically, people think that, oh, you're going to earn the big bucks. No, that is not the case, especially if you work in the nonprofit arena. So people, need to have realistic expectations. Like when I married my husband, before we got married, I was in law school, attending law school. So he told his family, oh, I'm going to, my girlfriend is a lawyer. So if we get married, she'll be Claire Huxtable and she'll throw her money. I'll just throw my money on top of her money because she's going to make the big bucks. I was like, funny.
And then you went right out to House of Ruth.
Exactly. Like, no, that is not how that is. I have student loans and I'm working for a nonprofit. So I will be using some of your money to pay off my student loans. But yeah.
And that's something I think we'll touch on in another episode more in depth, but also realistic time. What type of an attorney do you want to be besides just nonprofit versus government or big law firm? Do you want to have a family? Do you want to have community involvement outside of it? Or do you want to work 2,000 hours a year?
Right.
Or more realistic to have that balance of life. And that kind of goes into who has that luxury and that ability. So
yeah. Who can do a free internship in the summer, not get paid anything.
Right.
Who can afford to do that.
Exactly. So yeah, it is a lot to consider. And, I wish law school wasn't so expensive because it would open up doors for a lot of people. And I wish it was more accepting of diverse populations, the second career, like you were saying, or just people of color.
Yeah, because it is super important to have that representation. I worked at the public defender's office for a long time, and obviously people of color skew more for defendants, especially defendants in jail. And so just having a judge that understands that background, a state's attorney that would understand that background, a public defender or a private defense attorney.
It's important because I remember I was in a case and someone who was a young adult, the judge asked, so what is your future plan? And the young adult said, I want to attend University of Maryland, Eastern Shore. And the judge was like, no, you don't have to attend that. Why not go to University of Maryland, College Park? But I don't think the judge realized that the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore was a HBCU. And this person was a person of color. So instead of knocking it down and say, oh, you can do something different.
Assuming that College Park is better than Eastern Shore. Yeah.
So that lack of understanding shows why diversity is important. And diversity is not a bad word. It's just representation. You're represented. You see someone who looks like you or might come from the same background as you. And that is important.
Yeah. All right. Well, after that weighty topic, I think it's time for recess.
Yes. Oh, spin the wheel. All right. What game will we play today?
Court costs.
Court costs.
I was so bad at this last time.
All right. In Apple versus Samsung, Apple was given higher or lower than $20 billion in the settlement.
Apple versus Samsung.
I don't even remember that case.
Remember that. Must have something to do with phones, right?
Higher or lower than 20, is it million?
Billion.
Billion.
Billion with a B.
I'm going to go higher.
I'll go with Kat this time higher.
Ooh, I was going to go higher, but I'll go lower.
Higher.
Yeah, I won one.
40 billion.
Oh,
40 billion. Okay.
Mhm.
So in 2018, SCANA Corporation,
Scana
Corporation paid its customers higher or lower than $500 million for charging high electric rates, an additional $30 on average included in their monthly bills for a failed nuclear plant construction project.
Oh, dang.
I've already forgotten the numbers.
500 million.
500 million, I would say lower.
I'll go with lower.
Lower.
Higher.
Oh,
2.5 billion.
2.5 billion.
that is nice. Usually,
That was an expensive, not built nuclear
I
plant.
wonder where that is.
yeah.
Do we know where it is? I'm going to bring out the trusty old Google because now I'm curious.
And while Kat's looking it up, 20,000 Black farmers were awarded higher or lower than $5 billion, claiming they were unjustly being denied farm loans or subject to longer waits for loan approval, accusing the USDA of racism and failure to respond to their complaints.
Based on racism, I'm going to say they got less.
Lower.
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 Yeah.
Yeah.
How much?
2.3 billion.
2.3 billion. All right. Well, Scana's apparently in Georgia. It's
Okay.
Atlanta's energy provider.
Oh, okay.
Good to know.
Yeah.
All right.
Interesting facts.
So we have come to one of my favorite parts, the childhood traumas. I don't know why I sang it.
I'm reading it.
Yep.
Okay. Yep. Our today's story from Reddit. I'm a Black lawyer with long dreads, and I can absolutely relate to your post. I've been mistaken as a defendant multiple times. I once had a magistrate tell me to leave the courtroom while setting up. I dress professionally and keep my dreads tied back. It's very frustrating. And someone said, I can so relate to your experience. Black female lawyer here. I've been in a suit at counsel table with my client and been called Madam Court Reporter and asked, where's your attorney? It's laughable now, but it was very disconcerting to me then, and quite frankly still is now. I just brush it off easier.
Well, how many times have you and I gotten through security or around security and somebody else doesn't?
Yeah.
Yeah. They asked for your bar card. So, yeah.
And I don't remember the last time I've ever been asked for mine. So,
Nope.
Yes. But thankfully, the judges, magistrates here haven't done that.
Yeah.
So, and people in the courtroom haven't done that.
No.
So that's a good thing. But I understand that. I've heard stories about that. These people thinking Black males are defendants instead of attorneys.
my husband was mistaken for a defendant one time. White man, but still.
Yeah.
I took him to court with me because we were leaving for vacation right afterwards. So he just drove me to court, sat in the back of the courtroom as I did my case. And we're walking into the courthouse when I finally checked what he was wearing. I just didn't pay any attention before. And he's dressed for vacation. So he's got on an old t-shirt and baggy pants. And I want to say flip-flops. I was like, do you not have real shoes? I'm just sit in the back. And then after all of the preliminary inquiries have been called, sir, has your case been called yet? And I go, he's with me.
Yep. I'll do a shout out to my friend Villa, attorney up in Washington County. Her and Michelle Harris, I believe, right? And I am blanking on the third person. I do apologize. Might have been an Andrea. I apologize. I'm blanking on the third person. They were called the Supremes at court a lot by a judge.
Really?
Yes. Yes. He did end up going in front of the judicial commission for that one. Also, the fact that he was drunk on the bench. So he had to do an intoximeter blow.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
Yeah. That was before my time. So that's what people said. But yep. Well, that concludes our episode for today. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of All the Legal Ladies. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and listen to the audio on your favorite digital streaming platform. Until then, we'll see you next week. I didn't have a witty one.
Something about owls.